Howdy, everybody. So, uh, with the rise of AI and the displacement of workers, a lot of people are starting to think like, what will the future look like? Increasingly, we're in a bad area, Louisiana. So the discussion is, what do people do for income when there are no jobs or a scarcity of jobs? Most people think skilled trade jobs will still be around in the immediate future, but who knows 50 years from now, what the computers and robotics could do. If you look at a country like China, 2 billion people, if they implement AI, I mean, they are doing that. What do all their people do? For income, for wages. Same thing with India. You got billions of people and no jobs. It could happen here in the U.S. as well. You have uh, a large workforce, say 150 million people, and half of those are displaced by AI and robotics. What's the future hold for these people? So one concept is a universal basic income, where basically everybody becomes a welfare queen, and the government's going to send you money, every month, so you can uh, have the basics of food and shelter. And you say, well, that would never happen, but in some ways we already have universal basic income. It's called Social Security, and full Social Security age for my age group, my generation is 68. Previous generations it was 62. But if there's not a need for labor, who's to say they won't lower the retirement age? So it's like, maybe age 50, you become retired. Now you're on Social Security, or even lower. If there's no demand for labor, you could go lower. This is supply and demand. So if there is an overabundance of labor, we don't need so many people in the workforce. You could have earlier and earlier retirement, and more people go on Social Security. And you think, well, where's the money going to come from to pay for Social Security? Well, it would have to come from, I think it would have to come from these corporations that have robotics instead of laborers. They would have to pay something, because the government makes their money off of business taxes, employee taxes, and things like that. So if there's not a revenue stream there for the government to pay for Social Security, they're going to have to they're going to have to create one. They're going to have to create taxes on those corporations that use AI, so that it's like, okay, well, you eliminated your workforce through automation, but you're still going to have to pay taxes because we got to pay these people not to work. That could be deflationary. If the cost of goods uh, includes the cost of labor and health care for the laborers, and you remove the cost of labor, and you remove the cost of health care and the cost of pensions, all these things that the corporations typically provide their employees, then the cost of those goods to manufacture should come down. So AI could be deflationary. It could be that, you know, uh, things that cost, $100 today may only cost half as much in the future, because they removed the biggest expense of a product is the wages that employees earn. So this is something I think we're going to have to struggle with in the future years. Is if we don't have enough jobs for everybody, how do you keep everybody fed and sheltered? It in many ways, this is what socialists dream. This is their dream scenario, that people don't have to work, they'll get universal basic income, and the government will take care of them. for other people, this sounds like complete hell. It's like, I don't want the government. I don't want the government in my life any more than necessary. I don't want to depend on the government. I don't want to depend on the government for income or healthcare or housing or anything. But it, it's uh, it's going to be a challenging future. And you think about your career options today, and I'm so thankful to be a truck driver versus being in the office working. If you're in the office, you're going to be worried to death your job's going to be eliminated by AI. You know, AI is first going to come for the white collar jobs, and then eventually AI will be incorporated into robotics, and then they'll come after the blue collar jobs. And if most of the work, if not all the work, is being done by AI and robotics, what do people do for a living? This is going to be quite challenging. Now, if you look at present day rules and legislation, you think about people being on Medicaid. They have to work 20 hours a week or volunteer for 20 hours a week in order to get Medicaid. They could do the same thing with universal basic income. They could say, okay, well, the government's going to send you a check, but in order to qualify that, you're going to have to volunteer for 20 hours. And maybe that just makes the humans go around and pick up all the trash, or clean the streets or something like that. You know, uh, it's something where you're going to do something for that income. You can't just wait for your check to come in electronically. I mean, it doesn't even come in the mail anymore. It'd be direct deposit. So anytime there's centralized government and socialism, it never seems to end well. The Chinese, when they had Mao in charge, they killed like millions and millions of people, all under the guise of socialism and how this was going to improve humanity. When Stalin ruled Russia, another socialist communist state, killed millions of his own people. So this idea that, we'll have AI run everything, we'll have robotics run everything, and then we'll be more socialist, that could end very badly. That may not be something we want to strive for. I think the better scenario would be is have blue collar jobs that use AI. That AI doesn't replace them, but they use AI to enhance the job. So I think robotics, and AI are going to need humans to maintain the robots and the AI systems. So that, yeah, we can have AI do a lot of things, but AI still can't function without the human input. Without human labor to maintain AI. You could say, well, there could be robots that specialize in repairing robots. It's possible. Nothing seems impossible for AI. They say it's already smarter than most humans. You know, you can ask AI any question and it'll give you an answer, a pretty good answer. But if you ask an average human, they can only answer, a limited amount of things, without having to go look it up. AI doesn't need to look it up. I mean, AI already knows the answer in seconds, mere seconds. It's almost has expert knowledge on almost everything. So I would say, if you're a white collar worker right now, you've got to start thinking about skilled trades. 20, 30 years from now, AI could wipe out, at least half or more of the white collar jobs. And, people are going to be fighting for blue collar jobs. Could be deflationary, and the government could also implement mandatory retirement ages, and they could do all kinds of creative things that you'd say that would never happen, but they've already done this in the past. They've already created Social Security. That is universal basic income. And I would prefer not to be dependent on the government. Just based on history, that never ends well. All right, guys, that's all I got for you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the internet.